Guess what, guys? It's time for no driving gloves. It's a time of year that we get a lot of changes in the automotive world, and no driving gloves is going to be no different. We'll cover that in a little bit, but let's talk about some of the changes that I see happening and people are objecting to. Something came across my Facebook feed just a few days ago is that billionaire Rick Hendrick is tarnishing a NASCAR champion's legacy. Now, who could this be? I mean, Rick Hendrick has won a dozen NASCAR championships with him and his team and his drivers. He's out there. He's successful. He's known for what he does. He's very generous donating to charities and taking care of his car collection and hosting people and car clubs and car events. What could he do to tarnish a NASCAR champion's legacy? Which one of his drivers could this be? I can't even remember everybody that's driven for him. Isn't that Jeff Gordon? Jimmy Johnson, maybe? Is it... What the hell? It's not even one of his drivers. Rick bought Alan Kulwicki's old shop from the shop Kulwicki used in 92 when his Underbird, which we covered in a history episode a couple of years back, won the national or the Winston Cup champion. Winston Cup championship, back when it was called the Winston Cup. And I'm not afraid to call it the Winston Cup. Maybe today it's the Sprint Cup, the Nextel Cup. I don't know. It changes every couple of years. It's, NASCAR racing. And yes, Kulwicki overcame the odds and the big money and really was one of the last successful independents to win this championship. And he has this shop that kind of was forgotten about for years. And I'm trying to think, was it 18, 20, 21? I'm not quite sure what year that was. But it's 21. Yeah, it was 21 that Spire Motorsports was reviving the shop to honor Kulwicki's number 7 Underbird. And yes, I'm saying Underbird because that's how Kulwicki raced. He removed the T from Thunderbird. And somehow Hendrick has now bought this. And instead of demolishing the building, which is probably cheaper, instead of this building falling down, Hendrick's going to do something to help preserve the building. I'm not saying he's not going to remodel it. He's not going to paint Hooters all over the word Hooters from the restaurant. If you can remember the restaurant's Hooters, that was Alan Kulwicki's sponsor, all over the building. No, he's going to use it for his business. But sometimes it's fun to walk into these businesses. And even though they're not the business that you remember, the history that's there. Back in the mid-'80s, one of my dad's durable medical equipment stores was in a 19-teens, 20s Cadillac dealership. Massive building, huge ceilings. And it was still always fun for me to imagine as a car person the Cadillacs that could have been sold there. And I'm not even sure when the dealership closed. Eventually the building burned down. Then Dad moved out of the building. It was purchased by a hospital. And during the demolition to make a parking lot out of this massive, massive building, I mean, the shop in the back would have probably held 20, 25 cars. The showroom was massive, and the chandeliers were still in the showroom. They were hidden by a drop ceiling because this thing would have been expensive to heat or cool with this. I mean, it had to have 25-foot ceilings, gorgeous balcony, just a great little place, big place. But it was fun to remember. And that's what you could possibly do with Kowicki's shop. At least Hendrick's going to do something with it. What they're not sure. The article I was reading doesn't say what he's going to do. They're saying he may make it potentially make it a performance center, possibly make it a sub dealer, might make it a full dealership. Hard to say, but they're going to do something with it. The building's going to survive. And isn't that the point? Is the memory still there? And you can go in and you can fantasize about what happened. It's like when you're watching one of these videos lately that are popping up, and I'm reminded because I might head down there tomorrow between 9 and 3 here in Birmingham, Alabama, to Roscoe and Cheater's Speed Shop. They've slowly been selling off their inventory. And I think this might be one of the last weekends they're going to be open, trying to sell every bit of inventory. The Speed Shop, it was on American Pickers. I think that's what kind of brought it back to being known. But Roscoe and Cheaters, it was founded by three brothers. Maybe it was just 3 friends. And they had a true hot rod speed shop. Think Moon Eyes. SoCal Speed Shop. But this is in Birmingham, Alabama. You went there and you bought your gears for your, I think I saw something. It was some ridiculous gear set, 756 or something. I can't remember really what it was, but they have very rare classic parts. But this building, the owners retired because of they 50s. They were probably in their 20s, maybe early 30s. Add 70 years to that, they're in their 90s. And I believe not all of them are still with us. So the family is selling off this stuff because guess what? Amazon's there, eBay's there. That's where you buy these parts. And the family doesn't have the time, or I don't know what the real knowledge or lack of knowledge is, that they're not doing selling stuff on eBay or online auction or whatever, but they're liquidating this. And my fear is while the building's there and it still says Roscoe and Cheaters, it's dilapidated. It's not in the best area of Birmingham anymore. Once all these parts are gone and I'm going to say swept the floor, but I don't even think they'll sweep the floor. At one point they'll say, we're done with this, lock the door, sell the real estate. It'll all get demolished in one big thing. And then we get to drive by a vacant lot and go, oh, you remember Roscoe and Cheaters? It's changes. Changes happen in the automotive world. It's on the opposite spectrum, or maybe a different spectrum, but I don't know if it's really changes. But there's been news in the last couple months about Honda. They're going to start a classic car parts program. They're going to begin with the NSX. And then there's always rumors, what's the next cars? Damn well, it's going to be a Prelude or a CRX. I'm biased towards the CRX parts. It'd be nice. Honda's going to start remanufacturing these parts for the classic Hondas that are out there. Think of what manufacturer made restoration parts are like. This is the likes of Porsche, Mercedes-Benz, but Honda's going to do it. And then I just saw a couple of clips not even an hour ago. Toyota is going to be doing it with the, what was the Corolla from the mid 80s, a little sport hatchback. They're going to start manufacturing engine parts for it. They're bringing a crate engine. It's the 3.6, 3.8 liter. Help me out, guys. Inline 6 that goes in the Highlanders, goes in the Toyota pickups and that of the 80s, late 70s, early 80s, mid 80s, to help restore these things. And one of the podcasts I listened to, the Making It podcast, one of the guys on there has a Toyota Land Cruiser, and he just spent 3 years dealing with a shop trying to get a motor built or rebuilt. And guess what? If this crate motor would have been available 3 years ago, he would have had 3 years of driving pleasure for probably similar money to what he's got into paying to have this motor rebuilt by some machine shop. I mean, his garage, I guess, is pretty reputable. He speaks highly of them. The machine shop just never got around to it like machine shops do. But if you can just start knocking this stuff out, we're going to keep our history. And it's kind of, I guess, think of Hendrick's place like a resto mod. We're taking the bones of something classic and we're updating it so that it stays running and stays on the road. And that's what I think Hendrick's doing with Kowicki shop. And I mean, I could go on and on, but it's been a very hectic couple of weeks. And this is the part of the show that I didn't want to get to. No driving gloves it seems we do this every fall. And Derek and I have had episodes talking about we lose a little bit of interest in our cars, and I'm getting a little bit excited. I've been shopping cars, looking at different cars, and hell, let me throw out a car review in here to give you a little bit of car information, keep you on the hook with what's happening. But yeah, I've got my Mini in the shop. Believe it or not, some guy on a motorcycle hit me and dented the door. Been a fiasco with the insurance company, but if I was dealing with just a straight insurance company, we would have a no driving gloves off approach to the automotive insurance industry. But my agent has been fabulous. He's been working with me. He's been fighting my insurance company also. And why everything's not going to go my way, it's decent and it's going on. But while dropped the car off in the shop and picked up my rental, and they were going to give me some Tahoe huge GM SUV, and this is the greatest thing in the world. No, it isn't. Not when you drive 1,000 miles a week. They said, I said, I want what I reserved, which was a Corolla. And they, we don't have that. You can have an Altima or a Sentra. I'd almost rather ride horseback than drive a Nissan. No offense. Nissan's made some great cars, but rental car company Nissans just don't do it for me. Everyone's always not been impressive. So we're walking out to the car. I said, hey, what about the Prius? Yep. Car guy John, you know me, weird. They said, well, it just got returned. It's going to be an hour for us to get that cleaned up or something, trying to dissuade me and just take the Sentra and go on home. And then I'll wait for it. I'd rather sit in your lobby and wait an hour and get a Toyota than a Prius that I've always wanted to try to drive. I've got an acquaintance from college out in Colorado that for the last few years, I think I've mentioned him on the show, has driven a Prius as his daily driver. He's had some cool sidecars. I think now he's in a Aston Vantage or something like that, just as a toy, as his toy car. But he drove a Prius for years and years and talked highly of it. He had to put 2 or 3 battery packs in it over the years, and it wasn't that difficult nor that expensive when you consider the savings and stuff that a Prius brings to your life. So got this car, driving it. Let me next episode we'll give you a full review. I was initially impressed, not exactly impressed. And my hybrid experience is Prius and my Maverick. And I'll be honest, I really enjoy the hybrid drivetrain in the Maverick much more than the Prius. And it could just be my love of Fords. And I just I've never clicked with the Toyota. She has, my better half has a Toyota. And while it's a nice car to drive, I just don't click with it. Not like I do the Mini, not like I do the Maverick, not like I might do with my next toy car. So I haven't decided whether I want to replace my Fiesta that we talked about in the last episode and how it went away. Been looking at a lot more Fiestas, but I'm also looking at a couple other options. It's a lot of things are changing, and part of it's me. I'm launching the Hustle and Heritage business. It's curated gifts for men. You can find it at hustleandheritage.com if you're in the Birmingham area. We have a brick and mortar location inside of the Painted Tree, just off Highway 280 in the Target Shopping Center. We have our antique flea ball over at the Bama Flea Mall Center, and we're looking at a third location here in Birmingham. That's keeping me busy, or actually more leads also, but that's keeping me a little bit busy and a little bit distracted from the podcast. But I enjoy being here to talk to you guys, and I enjoy doing this. But sometimes we have to step back a little bit. And that's my sad news is Derek recruited Dave to come on the show, and Dave's not out. I just don't know where to put Dave right now because he has a very distinct car vibe and car knowledge that does not quite fit mine. And Derek's a little diverse in where he can go and where he can talk, and with his museum background, and Dave comes from a different background than me. I don't know if him and I could actually produce a really good podcast for you, but I'm working on alternatives with Dave. And why I'm saying Dave has a place at No Driving Gloves, and we're going to figure out where he belongs and how he belongs. Derek's going to have to step away for a while. He's got a lot going on with his family. I mean, No Driving Gloves started in 2017, in July. We really miss having Will Posey on the show, but Will ended up with a TV show. He's building the second or third additional building to Big Oak Garage right now. So in less than 10 years, he's expanded and expanded. He just had a car run through Mecum out in the Monterey Car Weeks. Dirty Martini. I mean, Will's life just blew up, and Derek's is kind of doing the same thing. When he started with the show, he had just joined the Corvette Museum, and we all know he left the Corvette Museum to go to the Lane, which may or may not be a better fit. We don't get into talking a lot about the bads of our jobs or the goods of our jobs, but Derek's also, I think, I hope we've talked about it. I mean, he's brought it up. He's adopted 2 children. So he's become a father and adopting 2 young children. I don't think he realized how much of his life that takes away, the additional commute to work, some of his side projects. I mean, he built this gorgeous barn and garage for his projects and his restorations, and he's been acquiring stuff, but he's just hasn't had time to do it. And he's asked if he could step back and take a break. And I have no problem. We like to pretend we make a lot of money with No Driving Gloves, etc. But we really do this to talk cars to you guys every week. And there's going to be the first change for the short term. We'll probably fix that again. My thinking is we'll probably bring Dave onto his own show, and you'll have 2 shows a week, or you'll have 2 entirely different shows with No Driving Gloves. We actually were talking about this before Derek made the decision to step away. And it became an ideal time for him to step away because we were going to shift up No Driving Gloves and maybe have a show that focuses strictly on older vintage cars with Derek and Dave. It might become Dave and Clayton. Clayton was on as a guest when I had to step away a month or 2 ago. And the numbers from that episode are phenomenal. It reminded me of kind of the old Derek, John, and Will days. We had great numbers again. The conversation was riveting. So I'm not against doing that. I've been thinking I obviously have a slightly different car fandom, geekdom than Dave and Derek. Derek's always been pre-war and this antiquated stuff, and Dave's really good 40s through early 60s. And I'm good post-war sports cars and Radwood and Malise and I mean up to brand new stuff. That's the stuff that excites me and I enjoy buying brand new cars. I enjoy selling brand new cars. Actually, I just think I enjoy shuffling through cars. So I'm going to focus a little bit more on some of the newer stuff and some of the new stuff that's happening for the old stuff and some of the legal stuff that's going on. I mean, it was atrocious this week when Leno's Law got killed. It was going good. And then it was going okay when they started to put a lot of restrictions on it. And then it didn't even, and I believe the California Senate passed it and it was in committee to go to California House and it didn't even make it out of committee. They just decided too many people were going to take advantage of Leno's Law, which would allow for cars basically pre-1986. Right now it's pre-1975. Pre-1986, maybe 87. Because the rolling thing was only going to go for a couple of years and it was going to cap out. I think it was cap out at 89, if I remember correctly. My numbers get jumbled. And too many people were going to go out and get 5.0 Mustangs and drive them to work every single day again. And all of a sudden pollute the skies in Los Angeles to become like it was in the 1960s. That's basically what they said is too many people would abuse this law. They would have to go out. They would have to buy a brand new car. They would have to have their old car. They wouldn't drive their brand new car they're making payments on. They would have to have classic plates that limit the usage of this antique car or this pre-1989 car and have collector car insurance on it. And that's why they would have to have the brand new car because they can't have collector car insurance unless you have a daily driver. And then a lot of the collector car companies have some sort of provisions on use also, in addition to what the plates allow you to do. But too many people are going to abuse it. So the bill got killed. And now, hey, you guys live in California. He's not a big popular person anymore, but do an Elon Musk and move. Get out of the state. It's there. I am such a car guy, and there are so many great jobs I see and great potential in California. And I've just never had the desire. Whether or not I could ever get a job with Leno, I don't know. But through people, I've known Leno's secretary. I know Bernard, who runs Leno's shop, things like that. So I do have an in to talk to him. And it's not to say that I'd work for him, but I imagine I could get a job doing cars in California. I just don't want to live in California and own a car in California. They take all the fun out of having a car. No, I live in Alabama where it's more than 25 years old. I don't even need a title to sell it to you and register it. It's just one of these things. So changes do happen. I feel bad about the Leno's Law, and I got a little sidetracked. I'm going to focus on the show for the time being. It's definitely going to come out every other week. I'm going to try to have other shows pop up in between. Where I was going to go with the Derek and Dave transition, which unfortunately now is not going to happen. I was going to start looking at more interviews and kind of guest hosts, viewers and listeners to the podcast that want to come on and chat cars. That's what No Driving Gloves is. As we've always said, it's a gloves off approach to the automotive hobby. We're going to talk down and dirty and be honest about how we feel about things going on in the automotive hobby. But it's also three guys sitting around having a beer, chatting cars. And guess what? If Derek, Will, and I went to a bar and you came up to us, we're going to invite you to sit at the table. And that's kind of what I want to do. I'm inviting you to sit at the table. You want to be on the show? Let me know. We might do a pre-chat, see what you're going to talk about, make sure we got a little bit of chemistry, but it'd be like a first date. Maybe it's blind dating podcasting for car people. Don't care if you're man, woman, giraffe, monkey, doesn't matter. Whatever you identify as. Me, I identify as a 7'2". Never mind. But we're going to do that. We're going to have that. I've been going through lists of friends and acquaintances of people I might want to invite on to potentially fill a co-host role. I don't know. I thought, when we launched in July of 2017, I had been working on this podcast for well over a year trying to determine what couple of friends, acquaintances did I have that would make for an ideal podcast. And I got damn lucky because the first two choices I had were the two that agreed to do it. And we had a great mix with Will and his hot rods and Derek with his antiques and me with my modern. And we could have good conversations about everything. We talked electric cars. We talked electric hot rods. We talked carbon fiber. We talked traditional metal shaping. We talked about, I can't even remember the funky carburetors and stuff that Derek uses and clincher tires and all that fun stuff. And we maybe we were too broad. We had great audiences, but COVID happened and things. But I think it's better. I'll be your common person here. The podcast was always my idea. Sometimes I become a little tyrannical, whatever, but that's just the way it goes. So be looking for No Driving Gloves at least every other week, possibly more often, hopefully more often. We're going to get a little bit better on the radio show or the audio podcast releases. I'm trying to talk to a couple of video producers. And if I can get a good video editor, I've got one in mind. He's fabulous. I've worked with him in the past. And I'm thinking of bringing him on as a paid employee. So I can go to car shows like we've always said we would, do some filming, do some interviews, have him cut it and be able to release it to the YouTube channel or the Instagram. We're going to get more active there. We're going to get more content out in the No Driving Gloves thinking. I'm sorry to do this to you guys and tell you that this is happening. No Driving Gloves changes, but unfortunately, unlike Matt Farah, Spike Ferrison, Matt DeAndrea, this podcast doesn't pay our salaries. This podcast doesn't support us. To be honest, this podcast doesn't even pay for itself. We do it for fun. We want you here for fun. Like I said, this podcast is now being paid for as a promotional tool with Hustle and Heritage Incorporated, which is my men's oriented gift shop, which the brick and mortar launched just a few days ago. And I am astounded by the numbers we're doing in these first few days. And it can only get better as people learn about the location and we get closer to Christmas. January and February are going to be terrifying. But as I've said, when Derek and Dave were here, I'm starting to put more time towards the podcast. Unfortunately, a lot of that time I put towards it got chucked out the window with the host changes. But if you have ideas, I may listen to them. I may not. I just said I'm a tyrant. So, but if you want a guest on here, if you want to talk about your car, come talk about your Corvette. We get a lot of people in the chat sometimes did not pre-announce this show. Be honest, I had notes for the show, but I just really was actually going to do the show tomorrow night. But you expect me here on Thursday. I'm going to be here on Thursdays. Hopefully I can get a couple of these new guests to kick the tires, take them for a test drive, see where we can slot in. I've been looking at one friend really, really hard, and I haven't sent him the invite, but I think he would be a fabulous fit for No Driving Gloves. So maybe we'll get Derek on for a goodbye show. But he's got a lot going on. He's overwhelmed. Dave wants to get back in here. Just like I said, don't know how to slot him in. Tell me what you'd like me to do. Dave enjoys doing the podcast. It's his ties to the automotive hobby, and we got some great people that come see it. But with that, I'm going to make it a short one tonight. We've talked 30 minutes about the changes that are coming, and it's, getting to be that time. We'll talk to you, guarantee you, in 2 weeks, but I'm really hoping I see you next week. So as I say every week, it's time to get off your ass, go burn some gas, because John is out.